Welcome to Resource Thursday with Blumira. I'm your host, Paco Lebron. This is the place to learn how to run your IT business, whether you're a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. Of course, because I've been gone for the last several weeks, it's taken me a little bit of muscle memory to get this back down. I appreciate Rick sticking in there for us for the last couple of weeks, but I'm glad to be back. But let me go ahead and introduce our guest today because Rick will be out today. We have Jeremy Young over at Blumira, who is the Director of Partner Strategies. Jeremy, how are you today?
I'm good, Paco. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I just flew back from Exchange out of that when they had it over at Denver. Really great time. A lot of new solutions to kind of take a look at. Always great to see my pals on both sides of the fence, vendors and fellow IT business owners, IT solutions providers, and things of that nature. So it's been really cool. But how's everything been since ChannelCon?
Busy. We didn't make it to Exchange this year. I'm jealous. That's one of my favorite events, the series of Exchange events, especially the one out in Denver, because I live in Texas, and Texas has been hot as all get out this summer, and so any reprieve up to Denver or anything that is a nicer weather is always welcome. But we have just been really speeding up. I feel like kind of a lot of people took their first vacations in 2 years in June and a little bit of July. And so they've come back with a vengeance in August. So it's been lights out.
Gotcha. Very cool. Very cool. We're going to get in a little bit about Blumira and yourself and kind of how you got into the industry and over at Blumira. But I'd like to talk about one of my favorite things, and that is Techcon Unplugged. We are exactly 22 days away from Techcon Unplugged. That is this September 16th to the 18th at the Hilton Rosemont Chicago O'Hare. Everyone has heard quite a bit about this show that we've talked about. We have plenty of things that we are bringing back, and we also have a lot of things that we're introducing for the first time in this rendition of, or this iteration of the show. We are going to come back with a pre-day workshop. Cyber Matt Lee has been gracious enough to allow for us to walk through a security tabletop to really understand an MSP's worst day. If you're going through a breach or an incident, how do you go through this? What is the emotions involved? It's going to be really intense, but also hopefully getting you to the right security posture on what needs to be done to take back home with you. Then we're going to kick it off Friday night with our Friday night social, sponsored by BVoIP, which we appreciate them doing that. And then we're going to have our great content over that weekend of Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be a lot of peer-to-peer presentation and panels. We also are going to have a lot of great vendor information that are going to be not only educational, but really speaking from the tech perspective of what is needed and kind of the realm that we're in right now. But what's most important, and from a lot of feedback we've received from our audience, is we are bringing back, or I shouldn't say bringing back, but we are bringing breakout sessions. This was a top topic that a lot of people have wanted us to have in our shows. Fortunately, the previous two shows, we had smaller hotels and could not accommodate. Now we are able to do so. So feel free to go ahead and head over to techconunplugged.com, purchase your ticket. If you are a Patreon or community member, there is a discount code waiting for you in there. And we'll talk a little bit about our community later in the show, but techconunplugged.com. And we look forward to seeing you there in exactly 22 days in Chicago.
That's exciting, man. And if Matt Lee is a friend, if you guys haven't been able to see him talk, if you haven't done a tabletop before, absolutely make it out to that one, because it will be very educational, get you in the right mind frame of things that you need to do to kind of shore up your incident response plan. So you know that like, hey, if your incident response plan, if you don't have one, or if you have one and it's on your computer, maybe print it out, because it might not be available to you someday. But yeah, he'll go through a lot of those type of things.
Yeah, Matt Lee's a really great friend. Really appreciate him coming through for us on this. He did our Microsoft 365 boot camp last year. A lot of our members took a lot to it. We've even heard some stories where from that show, IT solution providers have increased their business and introduced new lines of business that included for revenue of themselves. So really great group. You know, we do try and limit this to an immediate group of folks to try and get, you know, that more intimate discussion. So if you're interested on who's going to be there, you can also see that on the website. But yeah, to the point where Matt Lee had to have a commitment out of country and basically said, no, I got this commitment going on September 16th, and so I appreciate Matt Lee for doing that for us as well. So all right. So enough about that. Jeremy, really appreciate you taking out the time this morning to talk a lot about Blumira and a little bit about yourself. But before we go into Blumira specifically, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your intro slash origin story of coming into the industry?
Origin story, man. So I've been tech in a while. I've been in tech for a while. I got my start back at Hewlett Packard, HP, and just kind of not too far out of college. Got started up there, and it was actually a fun story because I got to know the channel by doing everything wrong you could possibly do in the channel. Because I got hired into HP Direct, which was a experiment inside of like a channel only company. And they, long story short, they hired some of the people over from Dell that made the SMB uh, business unit at Dell so great to start up HP Direct. So they had us in Dell. We don't have to go into their history with the
Mm.
channel, but basically they kind of taught us what ultimately it was not what not to do. And so I got to learn the ins and outs of the channel by making a lot of mistakes there. But we went from direct to channel neutral to channel preferred to channel only over the space of 3 years. And through that iteration, I got to learn, like, you learn more from making mistakes than you do from like accidentally doing the right thing. From there, I moved over to Verizon on the wireline side. Was there for about 5 years and got to know really well the agent channel. And the agent channel and MSPs, there's a good crossover there in certain segments. And so that's where I kind of got my introduction to managed service providers. And when I kind of got towards the end of my Verizon days, I was looking for what's next. And a lot of my customers were asking, like, okay, what's next after MPLS? After doing my own research, it was really pointing me towards zero trust architecture, like making sure that all apps were containerized and that you didn't just have this nice big M&M of a private network with a thin candy shell and you can poke right through that and you're in. So I found my way over to Duo Security. And at that time, Duo was just spinning up an MSP program, got onto the MSP team there, and we blew that up. So that was 2017. It was about within the first kind of 6 months of them starting an MSP program, and we went from a handful of partners to, by the time I left in late 2019, we had about 8,000, and I think they probably have close to at least double that now because they've been growing gangbusters. After the Cisco acquisition and after kind of putting some guardrails in place for the MSP program at Duo, went over to Huntress, was employee number 19 at Huntress, helped grow that and got to the point where it was over 100 employees. We were doing really well. And Duo is out of Ann Arbor, Michigan originally. Blumira is out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. A lot of Duo folks are over at Blumira, including the original VP of product at Duo is our CEO here at Blumira. So when they got into the place where they were starting to see MSPs kind of flirting around their funnel and like, hey, what is this? They gave me a call, and after Series A made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I came over and started up the MSP program here and kind of shored up the other channels. And here we are. So I have been here. I'm 5 days away from my 1 year anniversary at Blumira.
Nice.
And because the Exchange August last year was the last event I did with Huntress before moving over. So we're at the kind of a cool anniversary for me personally. But in that first year, we've got over 400 partners after starting from scratch, and things are going really well because there was kind of an open lane. A lot of acquisitions happened about the time or right before that I came over, and there's a need. There's not a lot of options. And as we'll talk about, there's not a lot of products out there, or really none, that are built for IT people instead of being built for security people in the SIM space.
Gotcha. And so it's funny that you say that around, like, this is around your 1 year anniversary. I always feel like August, September is when the channel changes. And like there's always the move of people from one industry to another, and sometimes some bigger names that you just never would have thought would have shifted over and stuff. And so being at Exchange, just knowing, talking to some of the vendor friends that I have, This year will not be any different. So there'll be some exciting news for some of those bigger partners and some of those bigger players. It's going to be definitely interesting that the channel will not look the same. And it always seems around this time, August, September, when some of those things happen. So it's definitely a trend. So that makes sense on that realm. But so you're over at Blumira, you're over at Ann Arbor, Michigan, obviously not too far from here in Chicago. Our first TechCon was over in Grand Rapids as well. But my question for you, and I think you kind of highlighted a little bit at the end of there, is what exactly is Blumira, and what does Blumira do for solution providers, IT service providers, and MSPs?
Sure. So we provide SIM. We're a proprietary SIM, security information and event management. We do a lot more than that, because in order to actually run a SIM correctly, have you ever had any personal experience with running a SIM, Paco?
No. So what I was gonna say is, well, yes and no. So for those in the audience, what is SIM? Because we just actually had this conversation where there were actually two different things that were
Yep.
melded together, but I know them as an actual type of logging technology of being able to really see what's going on in an environment. But obviously, I'm probably doing a huge high overview, but curious on because obviously you're in the space. What is a SIM?
So it's been around going back to the 80s, and you're right. When this whole space started, it was security information management and security event management. And there were two kind of tools. The information side started first, and that was like the logging. And then once you had the logging down, they needed to be able to do something with that. So they said, like, okay, we're going to write detections on that. And then we have these events. How do we manage those? And then eventually that got smushed together and became SIM, SIM, tomato, whatever you want to call it. You'll hear me refer to it as SIM. And it has progressed for a long time. Really, it's been a tool for the enterprise space, because if you think of a SIM, your mind probably immediately goes to a SOC. A SOC has to
Right.
manage it. SIM
Right.
is used by a SOC to get better awareness and visibility into all of your tools. So the point is, grab the logs, turn logging up to 11 on everything, point those logs over to your SIM, and getting that visibility, you then have to write parsers for everything, meaning so it's not just like one jumbled string. You have to parse that out so it's into a database. Once you get there, then you can start writing detections. If this, then that. And there are like in detections out there in detection languages that you can import into certain SIMs. But then what that leads to is a ton of noise. Because if you're just like importing other people's detections that you didn't write and might not be applicable to you, what you come out with on the other side is just untenable noise of false positives and detections. And the thing about a SIM, the value of it, false positive isn't necessarily a false positive. It's asking a good question. And
Mm.
so what you really want to get visibility into is, what are the weird things that are happening that, like, if you did it, and so I came from Duo, right? So I'll use a Duo example. If Paco adds a new phone to his Duo user ID, no big deal. But if a new phone gets added to Paco's user ID and you didn't do it, that's a big deal. And
Right.
so a lot of things come in as just like, hey, you want to ask Paco if he added this phone? And if your answer is yes, no problem, we're moving on. If the answer is no, that sparks a bigger investigation. And these are things that most people aren't looking at. Most
No.
people have no visibility into. And that's why there's so many different ways for attackers to get in, get access, and then remain undetected, because they're just using legitimate tools in illegitimate ways. And turning those logs up to 11, getting visibility into that shines lights in places where otherwise you wouldn't be able to see. And what our tool does is all that middle part that I just talked about, all the parsing, all the detections, all the detailed analysis, all the workflows, we build all that in. So you don't have to bring any security expertise to the table to use Blumira, that's the hallmark of the SIM industry, is like it's used inside of a SOC. Now we bring the SOC. So we have 24/7 SecOps support with a 1-hour SLA, and our SecOps team does all of that security stuff. So from an MSP perspective, I have really great detailed documentation of how to get this stuff set up. Only takes, like, the first time you do it, take a couple hours. After that, maybe it'll take an hour. maybe a little less because muscle memory. And once all the logs get flowing, you're kind of done until you start getting, we call them findings, alerts, findings, same. Uh, and when you get those, every single one will come with a detailed analysis in plain English, so you understand what it is. And then workflows that once you assign yourself, it's, hey, so did Paco add this phone? And you go ask Paco, he tells you the answer, yes, no, and it gives you the next step. In the app, you can message our SecOps team if you have questions, comments, concerns, or you can always pick up the phone and call us, and that's how you get to the 1 hour SLA. And we match and stack evidence. So my first week here, I got a call from a partner, and he was very concerned. He's like, I just did a pen test, and my Sophos firewall had 4,000 alerts, and Blumira only sent me one. I was like, okay, well, let's log in, take a look. And the one Blumira finding, it was one, but it had a ton of matched and stacked evidence underneath it, meaning like log events listed under the same finding. And then the workflow was like 4 options, one of which was, are you doing a pen test? And click that one, and it's like, okay, remediate finding. We're done here. So what are you going to do with 4,000 alerts? You're going to Control-Alt-Delete. But if you're given one alert that has a bunch of evidence and then tells you like, hey, this is often a symptom of a pen test. If it's not a pen test, we have a problem. But if it is, go back to your day job. You're fine. And that's our ultimate goal, is we're only trying to send you low noise, high action things that have that require action on them. And one of the most common questions we get is like, for this industry, it's been so long that like an outsourced SOC is taking care of it for you. But what they're doing is looking at the alerts, writing, like tampering down the noise, writing notes, and then sending it along back to you. Because at the end of the day, security alerts are usually taken care of by the IT team because of 2 reasons. One, you have the IT admin credentials to actually do something about it. And 2, you have the local context of the situation. You are the ones that know if your customer, like those answers that need to be answered around the context of did they do this or not, or you have the contact to reach out and be like, hey, did you do this? Some third-party SOC has no clue. So we're just getting you to that point faster and without the middleman, because we spend way more time on the detections up front. So a lot of times like when you work with a third-party SOC, they give you an SLA, right? 4-hour SLA. That's 4 hours from like when the detection was triggered to when they will forward it on to you after reviewing and writing notes. We don't have that delay. Everything gets immediately sent because we have tuned and groomed the detections to a point that we're confident that you need to look at it. And then our 1-hour SLA is, if you need help, you raise your hand and we're back with you in 1 hour for critical issues, to like war room style. We're on a Zoom. We're going to help you chase stuff down if needed. But all the context you need to remediate the alert, it's already there.
Gotcha. So want to unpack all that, because that was quite a bit that we ran through on just the fact of multiple things. So one, for those that are trying to understand, do I need a SIM? Do I need a SIEM? If you are looking at the insurance applications now for your clients and their partners, they are asking, hey, do you have a SIEM? They're specifically calling it out, right? And there are those that have tried to get a solution for a SIM, but as you just mentioned, either they have to go through a SOC because that's the more affordable route to be able to do it that way, or B, at least over the years, and then B, if they try to go do it on their own, it was way outside of the resources and budget from what they could afford. And so obviously when we ran into each other and you had mentioned, hey, look, we have a SIM, we have these things in place to really help the MSP and really cut out the middleman and really empower the actual solution provider on taking charge and action to what's going on, versus kind of waiting around and hoping the investigations team that they are leveraging a SOC to kind of take a look at that.
We are really the first SIM built for IT people.
Right. And that's the other thing, because it's not a technology that is for the IT people, exactly like you mentioned, because it's more of an enterprise technology being brought down, which is why it's so expensive and why it's so unattainable, at least the previous several years when anyone was trying to look at that, when they were first mentioning technology that we should really have something in place, and it started bubbling up, right?
Yeah. How many
Um,
security demos have you gone into with a vendor and there's like a million options and your eyes start glazing over because you don't know what to do? You're not going to write your own detections. You're not going to
right.
write your own parsers. You don't know what to do with that stuff. And
So I was
that's
actually
why,
gonna just So I was actually just going to mention that. So in a previous life, before I got into this, I did database management for 10 years. And what I can tell you is creating parsers are a pain in the butt, because depending on what the delimiters are, meaning the character that's following the actual data that you're trying to feed into this massive table, think of an Excel spreadsheet for those that don't play with databases. But how do you put it in their little cell, and how are we going to get that into a readable format, right? And unfortunately, our industry has created their own software in their own way with no real standardization. So there's a lot of work to be done with that, which is why when, for example, when we were an Untangle shop, now Arista, it was hard to find a sock that read those logs because of the way they built it, and that parser couldn't be feeded in. So, and we'll get into integration if you have an integrations page later on, or how that discussion can be. But just something for everyone to think about, that you have to make sure you have something that can read these logs, and are you going to have the time to really do it? So it's going to be interesting on how this all flows through, and I'm glad you all are kind of taking that front step, because as you mentioned, it's a lane that's pretty open right now. And really, you're trying to do not only just taking advantage of being there as a solution, but educating those that this is a solution that's needed.
well, in Paco, the parsers are hard enough to write, but then how many times does a vendor change a comma? Yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah,
just one little thing in their log format, or they add a new feature, and that so then gives you one more log piece of information, which is great, but that breaks the parser, and then you have to identify that it's broken, and then go in and fix it. And so it is a never-ending process, and that's just one of the reasons why usually this is reserved for SOCs to have a full-time job just keeping the sim alive. And that's why I'm a believer, and Huntress is the same way. If you're going to provide security to the SMB space and the MSP partners that serve them, the security expertise has to be built into the platform.
yeah.
And Duo is a security company, but it's really for IT people, right?
Hmm.
Because you're using the documentation to configure MFA, and it's an IT person just configuring it, and then really the product just works. Huntress, the threat ops is built into the platform. Blumira, very similar way, like all the security expertise needed to use it built in, not requiring you guys to bolt on.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting on how, there's two camps, right? There's those that are trying to consolidate everything into one place, and then there are those that are trying to find the right tools to integrate into their stack and necessarily bolt on to improve their services, right? And we've kind of talked a little bit about that now. It's like how you all are saving solution providers their time by actually going direct, being able to cut down with those SLA times, and just the way that you are filtering the noise. I think collapsing those alerts is a great way, or being able to investigate an alert that may have appeared multiple times, but having that additional information behind it. It's going to save time for any solution provider, versus having, as you mentioned, all these noise alerts going through. And what are we going to do? We're going to end up either muting them, or we're going to delete them, and we're going to miss something because of that. And every solution provider does this. I don't care what you say. And then if you do save them all, how long is it going to take you to go sift through them and try and figure out what's actually happening? Um, but kind of going into that realm, we did talk about how SIM is a very expensive thing for a lot of IT solution providers to try and acquire. How have you all attacked that, and to make sure that it is acceptable and approachable for a solutions provider?
Sure. So our mission, like the mission of our company, and I'm gonna like kind of read it to make sure I don't screw it up. But so we believe that by making good security simple and affordable, we can help smaller organizations that have been neglected, priced out, or simply failed by existing solutions. And if you let that sink in, that's exactly going to your question there, right? Like
Yeah.
it is our mission to try and make this technology affordable for the market that has not had access to it before, and that's really SMB. Doing it the way we're doing it, which there's definitely proprietary technology in terms of how we store the logs and how we like convert all of that, and so lower costs on that side, but also how we build in the SecOps support and don't have to have, when we scale, we're scaling through technology and we're using automation and not the crazy like machine learning or AI.
AI.
That's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's good engineering and good reviewing and tuning and grooming of these detections, so we have confidence to know that we can send it to you, so we don't have to have this ginormous team reviewing stuff before it goes, because that doesn't scale. And we've seen that
Right.
multiple times now. I'm not going to name names, but you all know the ones that have been acquired over the past few years, because you can't scale profitably and still remain affordable if you have to keep hiring tier one SOC analysts to review all of your alerts, because the alerts aren't good enough or the detections
Right.
aren't good enough. So we have been able to maintain affordability for our partners because of the approach that we've taken. And I have tried to provide pricing to our partners that is kind of where the market's going to be in a few years, because as you mentioned before, cyber insurance has tightened, the market has tightened. The reinsurance applications this year are like 10 pages, like they were 2 pages last year. So you're
Yeah.
getting more and more questions. And sometimes they're asking about SOC reviewing logs. Sometimes they specifically mention SIM. Sometimes they just talk about log retention and monitoring. All of that is pointing to you need a SIM. Uh, we satisfy that, and we do it at a much better price point than most of the competition out there, especially for when you talk about what you're getting. So the list prices are on our website at blumira.com/pricing. That's not an MSP's price point. I've provided a couple of videos that will be down in the show notes. The Understanding Blumira for MSPs has the pricing in there, but it starts at $7 per user and goes down from there based on volume. And talk about per user for a second. So this lane of technology can be priced in a number of different ways. And most of the time, historically, there's a data volume component, which is actually counterintuitive to the whole idea of a SIM, because it
Mm.
makes smaller organizations pick and choose what technology they're going to send it. Well, I guess I'll just send my domain controller, because if I send everything, it's going to be too expensive. So we get around that. There's no charge for integrations. There's no charge for data volume. We're just saying, how many employees do you have that use computers? How many knowledge workers do you have? Okay, that's our user count. And we're going to start at $7 per user. If the MSP, as you get aggregate better volume, your price will go down. If you have thousands of users in our system, your price might be $4 per user or $3 per user. It's never going to get lower than that. But it starts at $7. That's still really good for this type of technology. So if you're talking about, and that includes 1 year log retention and that 24/7 SecOps support, equivalent to some of the things that have been available on the market recently, 1 year retention, 24/7 SecOps support, usually with a 2-hour SLA is the best you're going to get before here. Your MSP cost is around $22, $23. So
Mm.
we are dramatically changing that and making this affordable, because I've been burying the lead here, but we also provide free for internal use to our MSP partners. So you don't have to even swipe a credit card to get started with us. You just sit in, I've info.blumira.com/NFR. You can submit the form. We're going to provision you a free for internal use environment of our advanced edition, which is the whole kit and caboodle, to let you play with it, let you operationalize it in your business, let you make an educated choice, or just have something in place. So when the customers start raising their hands, when the insurance starts requiring it, because it's all carriers do it at their own different time.
Right.
You're not behind the 8 ball. You have something that you can say, yeah, we satisfy that requirement. Here we go. And I know how MSPs work. A 21-day trial does not really help. A 30-day trial does not really help when you have fires coming up left and right, and like 3 months later you need to come back to it. So the NFR is there for you to play with and get operationalized on. And then when you're ready, we can set up billing, and it starts at an affordable price point that you can actually still maintain margins on and affordable enough for your customers to use. Because here before now, SIMs in this space, or SIM-SOC, outsource SOC, whatever you want to call them, they've been targeted at the MSP. They're trying to sell to the MSP. I am trying to enable my partners to use this technology so that we can actually put this out to the rest of your client environment, because nothing in this space has gotten out on average more than 10% into your clients, because it's unaffordable
Right.
and unmanageable at an operational efficient, and to remain operationally efficient. Most of these tools, the more you roll them out, the less profitable you become, because you have to manage the tool. We're not like that. You'll still be able to remain operationally efficient and have some margin in play as you roll this out across the board, which, to be honest, you're gonna have to do, because that's where the market is heading on the cyber insurance side. And CMMC, NIST, like all those things, PCI, they've been requiring this for a long time, and we all just
Right.
ignore it, right? Because
Right.
because our
Mhm.
clients ignore it, and so what are we
Mhm.
going to do? But the insurance is the one that's actually been biting, and that's the one that's making our customers stand up and take notice. So you need to have something in place that uh, allows you to remain profitable as you roll it out.
Yeah, I mean, a few quick points before we go into, as far as partner programs and such, where you said, you're right. Trials are nice when you have the time for it, but as we're running around, I mean, I'm guilty of this, where there are technologies I've wanted to look into, but the trial that they gave me, the time is just an hour in my brain, that and 21 days have passed, right? And it's just one of those where it's so hard to keep up, and then you're asking to extend it, and then finally you just say, well, I'm not going to ask them to extend it again. I'm
Yeah,
fine. So that's
you feel
great
bad.
that
Yeah.
right, exactly. And that's great that you guys are doing that NFR, to one, be familiar with this technology, but two, you do have the solution provider, the managed service provider in mind, because if they're going to adopt this, they're going to need it. Why not have them in the environment, get familiar with it, so when the call from their clients are there, they can go ahead and get on a good start. The second piece, insurance has come up a lot, and I'm trying to get a guest coming on here. But for those that are having questions and want to question, hey, do I need a sim, or is this really what's going on? Hit up Larry Mador over at DataStream Cyber Insurance. Really great friend. He will talk to you. You don't no sale, no like push your stuff. Well, I'll try to grab him to come on the show soon, because I know cyber insurance has been a big topic. I think even Rick talked about it this past Tuesday. So something to understand that, yeah, this is a solution that's going to be needed, that it has been requested for quite a bit of time. But as Jeremy just mentioned, it's been so unaffordable up until now. And then finally, we talked about pricing, as far as list pricing on the website. How is your partner program? Is there any commitments, any minimums? How would someone want to join Blumira as a partner?
Sure. So the kind of life cycle there is, you would get started. If you don't want to memorize, I got the link. You'll see it in the show notes, but you can go to blumira.com/partners, go to the MSP page. It'll say right there, like, request your NFR, and that takes you to info.blumira.com/NFR. That starts the process. Get to know it yourself. And then once you get to the point where you're ready to roll out to customers, there is a 1-year commitment at the MSP level. There are no minimums or commitments at the sub account level. Excuse me. So repeat, no minimums or commitments at the sub account level, and pricing is on aggregate. So you'll start with some sort of commitment to lock in your pricing tier. And when you want to increase that, and I'll put another link in here. This is an article that really goes into how the whole pricing works. But as you increase and get more customers in, you can upgrade to the next tier, We also can support ramps. So if you get through your NFR and you're like, okay, I've got 15 customers I need to move over. I know you're not going to move them over in 1 month. So we can, you can space that out, and we can give you the benefit of the tier you're going to end up at from day one while supporting you as you ramp up. But that is a 12-month commitment at the parent level. If you don't meet your minimum in any individual month, we're going to bill the minimum. After you get over your minimum, we bill for actual usage in arrears. You're going to get one invoice, and then you're going to get a detailed billing spreadsheet that shows all of your customers who used what. There are multiple editions and NFRs on the advanced edition. There's 4 editions. There's really only 2 that MSPs are concerned with. The advanced edition, and that includes everything: Windows logs, firewall logs, Microsoft 365, all that jazz. There's also a free edition. And so if you go to our website, don't sign up for the free edition. That's just for M365. You want the NFR of the advanced edition, which that's the link that we put in here. The free edition, though, you can use that for all of your customers and prospects as well to provide free Office 365 monitoring. It's all the same detections as in our paid editions. It's all the same detailed analysis and workflows. It just only has 1 week of data retention versus advanced that has a year, and it doesn't have any support embedded. Like it's just the product, no support from us because it's free. But it's a great way to get customers into the platform. And what I'm trying to do here is extend the product-led growth approach that SaaS companies have been using for years now to our partners, so you can to help you sell, get them hooked on the first free offering and make it easier to move them into the advanced offering. And you can go to a trade show and you can say, hey, SMBs, free Office 365 monitoring. It can be a hook to get more revenue in the door for you.
Nice. Very cool. Well, Jeremy, we're at the end of the show here, and we'll want to round it out. Really appreciate you taking the time this morning to really talk about Blumira, what you all are trying to do in the space. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that before we sign off on the show? And also, if anyone wanted to reach out to you directly and just pick your brain or just have a chat, what's the best way for them to reach out as well?
The easiest way is just to email msp@blumira.com. That goes to me and my team. My email is very easy, jyoung@blumira.com, and I'm always happy to chat. Things that we didn't cover: we do support dynamic block listing and firewalls, and so we have like some automated remediation. We didn't get into the fact of like the acronym of SOAR, Security Orchestration and Automated Response. That's really what our workflows help you get to, and we'll be adding more and more of that type of thing. So in the near future, we're going to have an agent that supports remote Windows endpoints, supports host isolation, things of that nature. So we're good now. We're only getting better. We're just getting started in the MSP space. If you don't know our name now, you will a year from now. And we're gonna be here for the long haul. We're gonna keep supporting MSPs, and we're gonna be that company that when this comes up, just remember our name because we're there for you.
Yep. And if you can't remember that, all you have to remember is "You're My Boy Blue," and you'll think of
You're my boy
Blumira.
Blue. And for those of you wondering, Blumira is like red team, blue team is where the blue comes from, and Mira is our little hedgehog mascot, and this is her cousin Blue for the purposes of this shirt. But yeah, if you see me at a trade show, you're gonna see me in this shirt. You're my boy Blue, and come by and grab one.
Very cool. Very cool. Jeremy, again, really appreciate you coming out and sharing with us this morning. And everyone tuning in, really appreciate you tuning in this morning as well. If you want to join our online community, head over to patreon.com/MSP Unplugged. There you will be able to get a lot of exclusive deals, discounts, along with early advanced notifications and entry to our online community that is currently being hosted on Facebook. Again, patreon.com/MSP Unplugged. Currently, it's about $1 a show, so you're looking at probably like $4 a month, and that will gain you entrance and a lot of the things that we have going on now. And right after TechCon, we'll have a quick announcement on the online community as well. Nothing too big is going to change, but that'll be some more great stuff that is coming as well. So again, patreon.com/MSP Unplugged. And if you like what you're hearing, tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. watch the video podcast on pretty much all of the social media platforms minus Twitter. So you got youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. You got facebook.com/MSP Unplugged. You can head over to LinkedIn, do hashtag MSP Unplugged. You'll find us there. Just like, subscribe, hit wherever the notification button is to be notified whenever a new
Smash
episode
that
comes
like
out.
button.
Just right. It's funny. I got a
I had
smash
to
burger
say it.
story to
I
tell
had
you.
to say it.
I got a smash burger story to tell you when I left Exchange. But anyway, yeah, smash that button. But if you prefer to take us with you on the go, you can find us on any of your favorite podcatcher apps. We are on Amazon Music, Spotify, and of course, Apple Podcasts. And then once again, we thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.
Thanks, Paco.